Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crowdsource Commander. I am Chris Cornejo, your host. Today, as you can see in the little window down there, yes, I did pick the right side point, we're going to be building Esix Fractal Bloom, but we're going to be doing a few different things with it. So, Esix is part of the new Commander 2021 decks that are coming out, specifically Quandrix Quandrix. I'm going to Quantum Quandrix. There we go. Quantum Quandrix. That's the name of the deck. I'm going to mess that up a lot, I'm sure. But yeah, so Esix is the secondary commander out of the blue-green Quandrix deck. I didn't want to just take the basic commander because the basic commander in there is really powerful and a little less exciting. It just doubles tokens a bunch, which is good and cool, but less interesting than I think what Esix does, which is, as you can see if you read the thing, the first time you would create one or more tokens during each of your turns, you may instead choose a creature other than Esix Fractal Bloom and create that many tokens that are copies of that creature. So, the big example that everybody's using online on Twitter and everything is Avenger of Zendikar. You have an Esix out. You have, say, 7 lands. You play Avenger of Zendikar. Normally you would get 7 plant tokens, 7 0/1 plant tokens. Instead, you get 7 more Avengers of Zendikar, which is kind of nuts, because then each of those Avengers of Zendikar will then spit out, what is that? There's 8 totals of 7 more Avengers of Zendikar, so you're getting 7 plants each, so that's 49 Avengers of plant tokens, and then if you play a land for the turn, all of those tokens get 8 +1/+1 counters because there's 8 total Avengers of Zendikar on the board. So anything that enters the battlefield and makes tokens, or even spells that makes tokens, gets really silly with Esix on the board. The deck that it comes in, Quantum Quandrix, again, I'm going to mess that up a lot, is actually pretty good right out of the box. It does exactly what it's supposed to, even if you switch Esix in for the commander instead of the one it's supposed to be, which I should just look up which one it's supposed to be. I'm going to keep forgetting that. It's normally supposed to be Adrix and Nev Twincasters, which is a token doubler card, which is really good and we're going to keep in the deck, but that's not going to be the main commander. Esix is, because like I said, Esix is more fun. We are going to have a few rules and themes that we go along with this, as we always do on the show, because I think having some rules in place and having a theme to follow makes building commander decks more fun. You can build super powerful commander decks if there are no limitations on you, but then you're kind of edging into things get the samey if you're going for a certain high power level, so why do that? Let's make it more interesting. Let's have to stretch a little bit. We're not going to be stretching too much in this one, but we are going to have to make some choices that we might not normally make. Our theme for this one is going to, unsurprisingly, be go wide with tokens. We have a bunch of ways to make tokens. We have a commander that loves abusing tokens. We're going to make a ton of tokens and go wide and run people over with an army of not necessarily small tokens. They can get pretty huge pretty fast, as you'll see with the deck. But we do have 3 rules to fill in here that will help guide us into the cards we are going to pick for that. So, starting with rule number 1. This is a deck upgrade. We aren't necessarily building from scratch. We're going to be taking Quantum Quandrix and we are going to be upgrading it. What I'm going to consider an upgrade for this is that most of the deck needs to remain in place. So there's 100 cards that come in Quantum Quandrix. We need to keep at least 51 of them there. A lot of those are going to end up being lands and whatnot, so, you know, we still get to mess around with a lot of the more fun and interesting cards, but yeah, we're going to try to keep this one as an upgrade for the existing product that already exists. This is a Card Kingdom stream. We do have to, you know, try to sell you some things. Anyway, we're definitely going to keep some of the lands. Some of the lands are going to come out, though. I already have a couple of lands that I'm kind of meh on in that list. Also, these commander decks, let me see, do we figure out what we're selling for yet? I actually don't know. We know, because the numbers and the allotments for them are a little strange. Pre-order sealed, what are these? So this commander deck would cost $44.99 to buy it as the Precon. The value in the deck, just in the straight cards, if you were buying it in paper, is around $104 as of this moment. So buying the Precon is a pretty good value. You get a lot of bang for your buck. So get on that. Anyway, rule number 2 that we're going to go with outside of upgrading is no token doublers unless they are already in the Precon. So that means no doubling season. no parallel lives, nothing like that. Token decks are very easy to go explosive with and have turns where you'll make 5,000 tokens and just run everybody over. That's good, that's cool. I want to have to work a little harder for it. Parallel lives and doubling season and those kind of cards also put a huge target on your head. I'm pretty certain that just by building Esix, I'm going to have a pretty big target on my head to begin with in the game. So we're going to avoid some of the more cards that are going to put all of the attention on me quickly. We're going to be a little more sneaky about how we build up and make all of these tokens. It's not going to be that sneaky, that's a spoiler. But just, yeah, no doubling season, no parallel lives, unless they already come in the precon, like Adrix and Nev Twincasters, which is essentially a kind of parallel lives on a stick. The last limitation, the rule we're going to put on ourselves is there's a $300 limit that we can add to the deck. So the singles themselves already cost $104, like I said, so we have a maximum cost of this deck of $404 once we're done building it. And that is the price as the cards are today. We aren't going to try to keep it so that it's that for all time, because obviously Magic card prices fluctuate and that's too tricky to do. So this is $404 total budget as cards stand today. Personally, I don't want to just make millions of random 1/1s. I feel like that's what green-white is good for. I want to make absurd cloney tokens, which is what Esix excels at. Yes, exactly. Like, we can put doubling season and do the Avenger of Zendikar thing. I think the Avenger of Zendikar thing is already busted and silly enough as it is. We don't need 5,000 just to trample over people for that extra 300 damage. We're going to be fine. So, yeah, I think that is all the preamble. We have our rules in place. We know what we're building. We have that. So, first what we're going to do is let's take a look at the deck as it stands. So, this is the Precon. This is Quantum Quandrix. This is what we are starting with. This is what we are going to work off of. It is, as we've been saying in chat, it's pretty good by itself. Like, honestly, you could bust this open, and obviously it's a Precon. It's not going to be super optimized. Like, it's certainly not CDH, obviously. You would get run over if you're playing at a super high power level table, but, like, this is going to hold its own pretty well. I think in a lot of games, like at a lot of tables, this would just be fine to just bust open and start playing. They did a very good job this year with all of the precons. But we have to upgrade this. So we're going to start, as we tend to, with the lands. I like starting with mana bases with commander decks just because it lets you know where you're going to, what you have to work with, like any of the weird effects that you can throw in. Fractal tokens do look very silly. I am excited to draft fractals. I agree. I want to see what kind of tokens our token artists come up with at Card Kingdom for fractals. It's going to be real weird. The card I was shocked wasn't in the precon was Progenitor Mimic. Progenitor Mimic is very good. It's very silly. I think that is another one of those cards that automatically makes you public enemy number 1 at a table, because I think I have seen it actually work and make tokens like twice in all the time I've been playing Magic since it came out. Most times the moment it comes out, 50 cards get pointed at you and your entire board gets wiped, and people hit you in the face and things like that. It's very... Progenitor Mimic is a card that makes people, very rightly, very scared. So yeah, let's start with the lands. Let's take a look at what we have here. They have... Oh dear. Let me get to the right screen so I can be pointing at the right things. So, Blighted Woodland. I love Blighted Woodland. We'll see. Progenitor Mimic might end up in the deck. It's on the short list of things to maybe add, but it's kind of borderline for me. Anyway, Blighted Woodland is a card I absolutely love. It enters the battlefield untapped. You can tap it for colorless mana, or you can pay 3 and a green, tap it, and sacrifice it. Go search your deck for 2 basic lands and put them on the battlefield tapped. It's great. It's a land that comes down and starts producing mana right away, and then later on you can cash it in for 2 colored lands. It's wonderful. I love it. It is staying in. Command Tower is probably going to stay in. It's a 2-color deck. I don't actually think Command Tower is necessary in 2-color decks. You can find other things to do. Basics work just fine in 2-color decks, honestly. If we come up with enough cards that we want to put in the land slot that do sillier things, Command Tower might get cut, but it's also Command Tower. It's just good. It does what it needs to do. It's just kind of boring, but it's good. Exotic Orchard. So, I do not know what the other decks the other people playing in Commander Kingdom this month are going to be. We'll let you know who those people are at the end of the stream, so stick around if you want to know that. It's a fun group this month. But yeah, Exotic Orchard, it's tap, add 1 mana of a color that your opponents could produce. It's Felwar Stone on a land, if anybody ever played with that in good old days or 93, 94 Magic. Yeah, I don't think we want this. I think we can do better than Exotic Orchard. Odds are decent that somebody is playing at least green, if not blue. Green is very, very good. I did not play Magic in 93 or 94 either. I started playing in 95 and 96. Thank you. 93, 94, the format of Magic. Old school. Yeah, like, Felwar Stone is good in a different kind of deck. I think Felwar Stone and Exotic Orchard are not great in a 2-color deck, even if these are 2 colors that are likely to show up elsewhere around the table. I want to be sure of what colors my lands can produce, so Exotic Orchard is likely on the chopping block for lands. Forests and Islands, we're going to have some number of those in there. I don't know if we're going to end up with 10 and 11 of each, but they're fine. Llanowar Reborn. Llanowar Reborn's fine. I like Llanowar Reborn enough. We can keep it in. The cycling lands, we have Lonely Sandbar and Tranquil Ticket in here. I like the cycling lands a lot in decks, especially if you can get lands back up out of your graveyard. I don't know we're going to throw that effect in the deck, but even so, the cycling lands I think are good. Commander decks tend to be kind of ramp heavy, especially in blue-green. You can get there pretty fast, so once you have your mana base set and you just start needing drawing answers, having those cycling lands in your deck are always a good thing. They're a little awkward, obviously, if they're like one of the 2 lands in your opening hand, but why are you keeping a 2-lander? Don't keep 2-landers unless you have a lot of mana rocks to go along with them. All that to say, Lonely Sandbar and Tranquil Ticket are staying in the deck. Lumbering Falls, it is the blue-green manland. It's actually a pretty decent one. It becomes a 3/3 with hexproof. Sure, we'll keep it in for now. I don't know how much we're going to really need a manland, but it's fine. Mosswort Bridge. I am not huge on the hideaway lands. We're going to have enough power on board that we can probably make Mosswort Bridge work, but I'm 50-50. I could go either way on whether or not this stays in the deck. So we'll see. Manlands are Secret Tech and Webcam Commander. They're even more hidden than usual. I agree. I think we can do bigger things than a 3/3 hexproof. Also, making copies of your manlands does not work as well as you want it to on the turn you make them. Because usually you're copying a target creature, so you've animated your manland, you spend a bunch of money, you spend a bunch of mana, make a bunch of copies of your manland. They enter the battlefield as the land version of the manland, so all those copies would enter tapped. They could become, we could activate them later, but meh, I think we can do more interesting things. Where was I? Myriad Landscape. Myriad Landscape is another version of Blighted Woodland, but one I don't like as much because it enters the battlefield tap. It is technically easier to activate because it does not require colored mana. Hello, Robotson, how are you? Spend that money. All Magic games now require 25 cents gas. So, anyway, Myriad Landscape. We already have this effect in our lands with Blighted Woodland. Whether or not we keep both of them is very much going to depend on how many basics we end up with. So, we'll see. Novagen, Heart of Progress. Good lord, I need glasses for these things. I can't read. Card Kingdom, I believe in you. I believe that you will grammatically be correct. Also, I have my 2 monitors, like, kind of... One of them is not in front of me, so sorry I'm going to keep leaning over like this and like this the entire stream. It's just the easiest way to work this setup. Novagen, Heart of Process, what do you do? I can't even read that. Blue-green, tap, put +1/+1 counter on each creature that entered the battlefield this turn. We can do a lot with that. We're definitely going to keep that. Fractals like +1/+1 counters. Opal Palace, add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. It's filtering though, so by itself it only taps for colorless. If you spend the mana to cast your commander, it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it equal to the number of times it's been cast from the command zone. Like, Esix is a good commander for combat. It's flying 4/4. It costs 6 mana, so it's not like a hugely aggressive one. Like, the point of an E6 deck is not to kill people with E6. The point of an E6 deck is to make a bunch of tokens and kill people with those. So I think Opal Palace is probably going to come out. So far that's Opal Palace and Exotic Orchard for sure that we can upgrade or put different things in. Oran Reef the Vastwood is put a +1/+1 counter on each green creature that enters the battlefield this turn. Otherwise it enters tapped and taps for green. Sure. You keep saying E6 and I keep expecting to hear Isekai. No, we are not an out-of-this-world anime series, for those of you who don't know what Isekai is. Normally you have to die at the beginning of an Isekai too, which, no, we aren't planning on dying. Quandrix Campus. So the campus is +1/+1 counter something for Fractals, but I don't think it needs to be there at all. No, it doesn't. Like, just being able to buff up your creatures in general isn't the worst thing in Commander, so I'm fine with some of these things being in there, like Oran Reef and whatnot. It's not going to be the main focus. There are some cards that definitely want more +1/+1 counters on cards in this deck. Meh. We'll see. Like, I'm more focused on making the tokens than I am putting counters on them. Anyway, the campuses. The campuses are the common land cycle from Strixhaven. They enter the battlefield tap. They tap for one of either color that they represent, in this case blue-green, obviously. And then you can pay 4 and tap to scry 1. That is an okay effect. There are other cards that I think do the same kind of thing better, and I'm probably going to swap one of those in for that. Like, I don't know, even Arch of Vraska I'd rather do. Like, it costs 1 more mana, but you just draw the card instead of scrying. Scrying's good and all, and it's a good mana sink. I think there are better mana sinks we can put in our land slot in that spot. So, Quandrix Campus, while you're fun, and actually not awful, you aren't great, so no. Rogue's Passage. We're going to be making a bunch of huge tokens. I think having a way to get one of them through, at least, in a pinch is good, so I think Rogue's Passage, I promise I can speak, stays in. Yeah, Campus is definitely a good card in Limited where you're going to get board stalls and things, especially in Sealed. The Campuses are great because it just digs you. Castle Vantress is a good call for a replacement for the Campus. Good job, Robotsson. Oh, you know, it would be silly Toski. Toski might end up in the deck, we'll see. Anyway, yes, Rogue's Passage, good, keeping it. Simic Growth Chamber. How do you all feel about the balanced lands? I am not very high on the balanced lands at all, just because I play a bunch of mean Magic when I play by myself, so there's a lot of Ghost Quarters and Wastelands and other things floating around, so the balanced lands are a liability unless you have a really good reason to be running them. We aren't likely going to end up playing Amulet of Vigor or anything in this deck, so yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about keeping this bounce land in there. That is definitely on the fence. Yeah, like Codename JD says, you can appreciate the bounce lands if they synergize. I don't really see a synergy in there. Let's be honest, we're probably going to end up throwing Avenger of Zendikar in this deck, in which case you get an extra landfall activation if you play the bounce lands. Good job, Commander Kingdom. You did it. But, like, I don't see landfall being a huge theme by itself in what we're going to end up building. So yeah, the bounce land probably goes. Study Hall is the commander land from these Precon decks. There's one in all of them. What new cards are allowed? There is that MDF-CUG card. Any card is allowed as long as we stay within the budget we have set, which is $300 over the starting price. The starting price for these as of this second. Actually, you know what? I'm going to refresh this page just so it is even more up to the date. The second, still $104. There's a couple of landfall triggers, but not much, especially if there aren't many ways to play extra lands from hand. We might throw some in there, you don't know. Like, if it ends up being a thing that we really want landfall, we'll keep the bounce land, but unless that's in there, I don't think we're going to. Where were we? Study Hall. Study Hall is add a colorless mana, or filter one, add one mana of any color when you cast... Wow, that is blurry. When you spend this mana to cast your commander, scry X, where X is the number of times it's been cast from the thing this game. I'm going to be honest, like, Study Hall does not really excite me, especially if we're playing a 6-mana commander. It just means we have to pay 7 if we really want the effect. And then we also have to keep adding 2 more each time we do it. Yeah, like, that, exactly, Codename JD. It falls into the same spot as Opal Palace for me, and I think we already decided that Opal Palace was coming out. That was Opal Palace the one that was coming out? I think it was. Opal Palace, yeah, so, yeah. I'm not a fan of Study Hall. I can see some decks where it might be a thing. This is not one of those decks, but they threw it in every commander deck because it's the new commander land. Yeah. Augmented Pugilist is definitely going to stay in or come in. Like, yeah, we can jump around the discussion. It's not super, you know. We aren't that super regimented in what needs to happen here. I'm not supposed to scroll that screen, sorry. Temple of Mystery, sure. Like, Scry 1, it enters tapped. Entering tapped isn't great. I'll take the Scry. It's fine. Temple of the False Gods. There's some discussion in commander circles around this card whether or not it is actually good still. Or, you know, good at all, I guess, not still. It is an inherently powerful effect. You're making 2 mana, but if it is one of your opening lands that you draw, it's just kind of useless. Temple's on the fence for me. I kind of tend to lean that anything that is that conditional to have to make mana, unless it is at a power level of something like Gaia's Cradle, where it makes no mana if you have no creatures, but once you start getting creatures, it's nuts. Yeah, it's... Temple of False Gods weird. Tranquil Thicket, we already said. Yavimaya Coast. It's the Pain Land. I know the screen is cutting it off right now, but it's can tap for 1 colorless, or you can tap for a blue or green and ping yourself 1. Meh. We probably can turn the Temple on. That is a fair point. I don't know. We'll see. Like, part of me just wants to upgrade those lands that we talked about with better, dual lands, just like maybe a shock or something, but now that we've gone through the lands, we go to EDH Rec, just because it is a handy site for figuring all this stuff out, and handily enough, they have a whole section on lands. There's nothing here in the new cards we need to worry about, nothing to reprint, so we go down to lands. Yeah, like, there's plenty of options here. Just kind of depends what we want to do. It lists all the ones that are already in the deck, which is fine. Hinterland Harbor actually doesn't start out in the deck. We might throw a Hinterland Harbor in there. As far as colored lands, what else do we got? Rejuvenating Springs. That can probably go in there. That's a good call. So let's start subbing some stuff in. What do we say comes out? Exotic Orchard is the first one that comes out. We are going to throw Rejuvenating Springs in there. Rejuvenating Springs, for those who do not know, is the Battle Bond land. Flooded Grove is indeed not terribly expensive anymore at Card Kingdom. Go pick one up if you want one. Filter lands are very good in certain situations. They can be a little tricky sometimes. Rejuvenating Springs. Rejuvenating Springs is a Battle Bond land. It is dual land, it taps for either color of mana. It enters untapped if you have 2 or more opponents. So the only time it doesn't enter untapped in a commander game is if it is down to you and one other person. In which case, you're probably already at a point of the game where the land coming in tapped isn't going to kill you. So Rejuvenating Springs goes in place of Exotic Orchard. What else do we got? We have all of those. The filter lands are good. I'm not a huge fan of it here. We have the shock. The only reason we need the shock is if we end up running a bunch of fetches, and so far we aren't. We could throw in fetches, like it's listing, Fabled Passage, Misty. Given our land constraints, our money constraints, I'm kind of thinking we can skip the fetches. Like, we have other ways of ramping and getting out mana. I don't think we really need the fetches. I don't even think we need, Evolving Wilds. The reason we want fetches and Evolving Wilds and that sort of thing in the deck, again, to me, the reason to throw them in a commander deck is if you're running, Ramunap Excavator, Crucible of Worlds. those kind of cards where you can keep getting the lands out of your graveyard, because at that point, fetches just become you are always going to hit your land drop for as many basics as you have, which is very good. But I don't know that we're running it, so who cares? We have the Snarl, the land from Strixhaven, the new dual land. What is your thing again? You may reveal a forest or island from your hand. If you don't, it enters tapped. That's fine. It's kind of meh. We'll see. Especially once we get into the utility lands. I know there's a few that I'm going to want to add in, so we'll see. Botanical Sanctum, no, I am definitely not a fan of the fast lands, or whatever you want to call them, the Scars lands in Commander, just because you get out a lot of lands fast, and these kind of lands are better if you can run 4 of them in an aggressive deck. Running 1 of them in this kind of deck, no. Yara Mirror Lake, ooh, that's interesting. You can set for, so it enters battlefield taps for blue. You pay 5 mana, 2 green, 1 blue, to sacrifice it and create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Do it at sorcery speed. You know what? We're a token deck. We want silly ways to make tokens. That is absolutely going to go in place of that. Opal Palace was the next one to cut? Yeah. Alright, so Lit Yara Mirror Lake. Oh, Mirror Lake has got to be in. It's like the whole thing. Agreed. Rhymewood Falls. I don't think we have a snow theme at all in here, and unless we really want the Forest Island to fetch it, I don't care. So, no. Ash Barrens isn't bad if we really need the fixing, but it's a 2-color deck. I'm much more likely to run Ash Barrens in 3+ color decks. And then we get into kind of a bunch of also-rans and or fetches and things like that, so I think as far as color lands go, the only other addition I might throw in is Hinterland Harbor. So let's just slot that in somewhere right now. That'll take the place of our study hall. Oops. Hinterland Harbor. Honestly, even Colony Garden is good to include. We can make the plant thing anything if we draw it later. That is a good point, and probably a thing we're going to end up doing. So, real quick, just updating some of the things for the few changes we've made so far. And in a second, just hop back over to the visual view. Not much has changed. We are, oh dear, that actually reset where that is. Crazy. Alright, there's that. As you can see, if I scroll up a little bit, actually, we are now at, oh, come on, I believe in you. Reset. Why aren't you resetting to the new bit? It's just showing me the same one again. I don't like it. Alright, I will get that back up in 1 second. It was being silly. For now, we are at... Weird, neither of them are updating. Oh, because I just updated the preview. I didn't save the deck. That's why. Nah. There we go. Alright. Sorry about that, everybody. I promise I know what I'm doing, at least to some extent. Next, we're going to work on utility lands, which I will get going in just a second. Oops. There we go. Okay. We're getting places. Things are happening. I promise. I think we might want Evolving Wild, though. I think lands aren't going to be too wild. Yeah, it's a token effort. That's the deck name. Yeah, be that way, Card Kingdom. I like my deck names. What are we at? We are now at... Why is not the visual view updating? That is weird. There we go. Alright, so yeah. The token effort deck is now up to 120 bucks, essentially. Utility lands, that's what we're working on now. So we go over up here to utility lands. Hey, look at that. Colony Garden's the first one that's listed. Good job, codename JD, you called it. I'm kind of amazed Colony Garden actually already isn't in the list. That seems like the sort of thing Wizards loves to throw in. Weird. Alright, what do we want to get rid of for Colony Garden? What do we say? There's Temple of the False Gods, a maybe. You know what? Let's cut the Growth Chamber for that one. Colony Garden. Alright, any of these other ones? Oh yeah, Mosswort Bridge is still a maybe. I'm just gonna let you all in chat fight with our Card Kingdom moderator. Spawning Bed. Spawning Bed I'd be more of a fan of if it was repeatable. I don't know that I really care when it is by itself. Gingerbread Cabin makes a food token when it comes in, which could end up being something else. That's kind of a funny one. I think I like Colony Garden better, just because there's no way. It's for sure entering tapped, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. The 01 green plant, I think, is more useful to us than the food if we aren't E6ing. Alchemist Refuge is a maybe. Command Beacon, I like. We could throw Command Beacon into the deck. Yeah, all of these ones that make tokens but sacrifice themselves to do, I am not as big a fan of. We might revisit that again if we end up throwing in land recursion, but until then, I'm not a fan of like your Foundries of the Consoles, your Mirror Pools and whatnot. Mirror Pool is more useful than Foundry token. Mirror Pool might have a place. What do you do? 2 and a colorless. Colorless is actually a bit of an issue. Sacrifice Mirror Pool, copy instant or sorcery, or 4 and a colorless, put a token on the battlefield that's a token of a creature you control. Call it Steve's Funhouse. It's not even Steve anymore. It was Steve, and then it was Joe, and now it's another guy. Steve's still the best one, but the new guy actually isn't bad. This is what the stuff you learn when you have a kid, by the way. I have opinions about the different hosts of Blue's Clues. The new guy can actually kind of play guitar and sing, so, you know, he's got some stuff going for him. Do we want Mirror Pool? We didn't want Mirror Pool. We wanted Command Beacon. So what land are we getting rid of for that? Oh, Mosswort Bridge. I'm just not enough of a fan of Hideaway, even in these decks. Unless somebody can talk me out of it. Isn't the new guy also a literal model? I mean, maybe. A lot of kid show hosts and things like that start out as models and or other sort of actors, so I'm not going to judge him for looking good. Command Beacon. Alright, let's update that, make sure I typed everything in right. Looks like I did. Save it. Update some things. See if I can actually get it looking correct on the screen again. Let's see if I can fix my mistake from earlier. Yay, it's working. Okay. So there's that. We're up to $122. Still not awful. Are you gonna work right now? You are. Cool. So yeah, $122. Curve actually isn't bad for now, but we're gonna be messing with that a lot, so not even gonna bother really commenting too much about that. There's the deck. It's what, 40 lands that it actually starts with, so I might end up shaving a couple of the basics, just because 40 is a lot. Ancient Tomb is a solid add for the deck. How much does Ancient Tomb cost nowadays? Ancient Tomb is $60. That's a lot of our budget. Maybe later, once we see if we have room for it. Tireless Tracker is going to be a thing. But for now, we figured out our lands, or at least we have a starting place that is good for our lands. So we move on to the next step, which is going to be our ramps and our rocks. So let's take a look at what this deck already starts out with for its ramps and its rocks. So, Soul Ring. Yeah, probably keeping that one. It's pretty good. Arcane Signet. It's a 2-mana rock. It does exactly what it needs to do. It is the most boring of all of the rocks for Commander. 2-color decks, again, 2-color decks are the ones where I'm not sure the fixing is necessarily worth investing in, but 2-mana ramp is still good, so Arcane Signet definitely staying in, which is also the same reason Simic Signet is probably going to stay in. It is fixing, which is nice. 2 colors doesn't really need the fixing most times, but it is 2-mana ramp, so it's fine. The Idol is not ramp, so we don't care. Geometric Nexus is not ramp, so we don't care. And everything else in there, so they start out with the 3 rocks: Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Simic Signet. I mean, that's a good place to start. Those are the 3 best rocks as far as just these colors and everything, so good job, Wizards, on including the actual ones you want in the Commander Precon. That is good. As far as ramp goes, what do we have? Coiling Oracle kind of counts as ramp. For those of you who don't know, Coiling Oracle is, to me, one of my favorite uncommons ever. It is the definition of what a good uncommon is. Replicating Ring, maybe. Maybe. It's real slow. Like, Replicating Ring is a manalith that can become 9 manaliths, but I don't know that the game's going to last that long once we've cast it and everything else. Anyway, Coiling Oracle. When it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top card of your library. If it is a land, it goes onto the battlefield. If it's not a land, it goes into your hand. It's great. I'm technically counting it. I'm not going to count it as a piece of ramp because it isn't for sure ramping. Skyclave Relic is the kicker one, right? I like that just because it's a little more useful late game than just like drawing a manalith. It's got a shot. Incubation Druid is good. It's not exactly like a Llanowar Elf style good. It's different good because it can become bigger and then become Gilded Lotus, essentially. I like Incubation Druid. I think Incubation Druid is good. We also have a bunch of those incidental +1/+1 bits where you aren't making it as big as it can be, because if you do the whole adapt thing, it becomes a 3/5. But even if you just put 1 +1/+1 counter on it, you are able then to tap it for 3 mana. So by turn 3, you could have this thing tapping for 3 mana, which is real good. So I think we keep that one in there. What else do we got as far as ramp? I think that's mostly it as far as the creature ramp goes. Other than that, what do we got? We got Garrick doesn't really ramp us, and then we get into our spells, which is Rampant Growth. Just fine, it's a little basic. Anything that makes Eldrazi spawn or Scions ramp in the early game, take token clones late in the game. That is why there is this enchantment in here. Oh no, sorry, that's the new one. What's the zone that's the Eldrazi one that spits out spawns or Scions that I'm thinking of? Emergent Zone? Maybe. Awakening Zone, and From Beyond. Thank you. So those are 2 things that I will definitely consider because they do just spit out tokens every turn. Spitting out the tokens every turn can actually kind of work against us, though, because if we have, say we have Awakening Zone out on the battlefield. In our upkeep, it spits out the Scion. That becomes the copy of whatever we want it to be with Esix on the battlefield. Then we play our Avenger of Zendikar. We don't get to do the silly Avenger of Zendikar shenanigans because Esix only triggers once a turn. So, I like the idea of Awakening Zone and or From Beyond, but I'm going to have to think about it before I just commit to it. Yeah, that one's an interesting one. So other than Rampant Growth, what do we have? Commander's Insight isn't that. Golden Ratio. Draw a card, that's not that. Kadama's Reach. I like Kadama's Reach. I like Kadama's Reach better than I like Rampant Growth, but Rampant Growth is 2 mana. Anything else? I don't think there's actually a ton in here. Yeah, wow, there's not a lot. I like what they have in here, but I feel like there's room to add some. So, what do we like? Let's get at least one more good ramp spell in here. Could add in Cultivate. We do have Kadama's Reach. We could just do the other version of it, which is Cultivate. You know what? I am actually willing to cut 1 land and put in a Cultivate. Is there any other big, like, other small ramp spell? Like, we can do the huge ramp spells, but I think they have less utility in this kind of deck because we're going to be churning through stuff pretty fast with this kind of deck. Blue-green can get through itself pretty quick. I don't think we're going to have too much trouble hitting land drops, so something like Explosive Vegetation is good. Cryptolithrite is very funny. Interesting. There's the cycling one that gets to. I like the idea of Cryptolithrite because that is ramp that can also kind of use instant speed. Migration Path is good. I like Migration Path for the cycling bit. So yeah, let's cut one forest and one island. We're going to go down to 38 lands, which I still think is absolutely fine in this deck. And we could add them back later if we want to. And we are going to add Migration Path and Cryptolithrite. Alright, so we are going up a bit in price. It's going to take a second after I hit save and everything to show it off. Good call, Robotson, on the Migration Path. I forgot about the cycling one, and I like me cycling. Anything that churns through my deck and gets me seeing more cards is good stuff. So 136 bucks. We're still fine on money. I just like keeping track in the moment because it's very easy when you're deck building. It happens to me a lot, where I'll throw in a bunch of cards and thinking, yeah, that's great, oh, that's good, and then I look up the price for everything and I've spent $2,000. So keeping an eye on what you're spending is good. Where are we at? What's happening? I don't even know. I'm just going to check EDH Rec real fast to make sure I didn't miss anything obvious and good as far as ramp. Mana artifacts, what do they have? Oh, the Talisman. Talisman's fine. We already have the other Signet and the Simic Signet. Skyclave Relic they did have. Kicker 3. Like, we could do Skyclave Relic. I think we're fine with what we have. Maybe. If we look at the deck later and we realize we have a lot of big mana stuff and we really want more, Skyclave Relic will be the next one in. However, people like being mean about your artifact ramp too, so I try not to rely too much on having a ton of rocks unless it's specifically an artifact deck. Especially with, Shivam and Gavin having that conversation on Twitter yesterday about Meltdown and a bunch of other cards that just destroy low mana artifacts. It's just like, thanks you two. It already wasn't hard enough. If you haven't seen Meltdown, go look up Meltdown. Maybe pick one up from Card Kingdom. That card is mean in Commander if you build your deck around it. This deck is sadly not in the correct colors for it, but holy buckets if it were. Yeah, I think we're good on all of that, the ramp and the rocks. So we're going to move on to the next section. Draw and removal. I appreciate cards that can pull double duty. It making tokens is nice. Skyclave Relic is indestructible, though. That is true. That is another good reason for Skyclave Relic being in there. So yeah, Skyclave Relic. What else? Is there anything else we could put in Sky? So one thing I am going to try to do with this deck, since we're upgrading, any of the new cards that are specifically Commander cards coming out in Commander 2021 that were part of this deck as it started as Quantum Quandrix, I'm going to try to keep in just because they all actually look pretty good and I want to get a feel for them. The one I am willing to cut is Study Hall because, as we discussed, it's not great for the theme of this deck. I can see decks where it's better. This is not one of them. So Skyclave Relic. Ruxa's fantastic in a token deck. Like, all of those +1/+1 fractals that we're making, they don't have any other abilities. Ruxa is nuts, so we'll talk about Ruxa real quick just because it came up. Where are we at? There it is. So Ruxa, where are you at? Where did Ruxa go? Ruxa, Patient Professor. What do you say? Whenever Ruxa... Good lord, that is so blurry on the goldfish thing. Hold on, let me find a version of that I can read. Rooks, come here. I have all of these pulled up on another window. It just turns out that scrolling through a bunch of cards takes a minute. Rooks, there we go, Patient Professor. What? Come on. Oh, come on. There we go. Load. There we go. Whenever Rook's Patient Professor enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature card with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand. That part we're probably not going to end up using. This is Commander. That part's in there for, like, draft. Every creature that we play is going to be able to do something, so ignore that line of text. Creatures you control with no abilities get +1/+1. You may have creatures you control with no abilities assign their combat damage as though they weren't blocked. This deck can very easily make 8/8+ size tokens that have no other abilities, so yeah, like, hey, Junior82, thank you for that sub. I'd rather run Herald of Secret Streams, though. What do you do, Herald of Secret Streams? Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them can't be blocked. That could be one that we throw in additionally. I do like Rooks still, though, so perhaps both of them. Where are we at? What are we doing? Draw and removal is technically where we're at, so let's figure that out. Our spells that care about draw and removal. We have... Look, it's a fun new card. I'm going to play with Rooks. Herald of the Secret Streams we might very well end up throwing in the deck because it is a good call in there. It also depends on how much we end up leaning into the +1/+1 counters because they're good, but they aren't the main bit of the deck. We're going wide with the tokens. We aren't necessarily trying to Voltron out one of them. So, card draw. It's not Biomass Mutation, Curse, Rampant Growth. Commander's Insight. Target player draws X cards plus an additional card for each time they've cast their commander for command zone. So, if you cast your commander once, it's 3 mana, draw a card at instant speed. The more mana you dump in, the more cards you draw. The more times you've cast your commander, the more cards it gets you. It's one of the new ones. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's the best, but I'll keep it in. It's worth seeing how it plays out. Especially with Esix being our commander, it's probably not going to come up that often. Rift is probably too expensive. Evacuation, or the other one I'm thinking of doing, which is River's Rebuke. The deck does not start out with Decisive Denial, but that is one I am definitely thinking of throwing in. We'll get there. What do we got? Golden Ratio is, I think, another draw spell. Draw a card for each additional power, for each different power among creatures we control. That one can very easily end up drawing us, you know, I can see us ending up with a board state where we have creatures and tokens with different powers from 1 through 6. So the floor on this is that it ends up drawing us 1 card. You're fine. Keep throwing out cards. Like, the point of this is to have a discussion as we build the deck. Throw out cards. It's fine. Golden Ratio, I think, is worth it. It's 3 mana at sorcery speed, which isn't necessarily great. Its floor is it draws us 1 card, because I'm never going to cast it if we have 0 creatures on board. And if we have 1 creature on board and cast it, and somebody uses a removal spell to get rid of that creature, it was worth a creature. Why not? How dare you, Card Kingdom? No Ulamog. That's your commander. That's not mine. Whelming Wave, maybe there's only, I think, 1 or 2 creatures in this deck that work well with Whelming Wave, but we'll see. But yeah, Golden Ratio's floor isn't the worst. It's certainly not impressive, but its ceiling is nuts. That can absolutely just refill our hand completely. So that's, like, so far 2 slots for card growth. Mods can we ban Card Kingdom for trolling? What happens if you ban yourself as a streamer? I don't think you actually can. Theoretical Duplication is not a card draw spell, right? No, but it's another one of those silly ones. Eureka Moment, draw 2 cards. You may put a land card you control among them onto the battlefield. Hey, there's a rant bit I missed. Yeah. There should be an option where... No, that would actually be terrible. There should be a way to time yourself out just so you stop spamming chat. But Eureka Moment is fine. It is an instant, which I like better. It's draw 2, potentially put an extra land onto the field. So it's 2 extra mana for a growth spiral that draws you an extra card. Fine, I like it. Incubation Incongruities, technically kind of draw. We can go search up a creature if we need it. And then it's also removal. So, you know, it does both. Great. Nissa's Expedition. Oh, I forgot that for ramp. Search your library for up to 2 lands. And it has Convoke. This works well with all of our token stuff. Cosima for draw? Maybe. Oversimplify. Oversimplify is my favorite Wrath from these new decks, just because it's a blue-green Wrath, kinda. If you don't know what it does, it's 5 mana for a sorcery. Everybody exiles all creatures they control, then they get 1/0/0 Fractal token that gets as many +1/+1 counters as the total power of all of the creatures you controlled before that. So, yeah, it's just super silly. And with cards like Ruxa, if you oversimplify, we had, 15 creatures out of all varying powers. We have 1 huge creature. Next turn, we slam Ruxa, or we slam Herald of the Secret Streams. Yeah. It's good and silly, and I like it. And it is one of my favorite cards that they printed in this set. Perplexing Test. It's funny. I like it. It's technically kind of removal. No, it's definitely removal. Return all creatures, all non-token creatures that a player's control to their hands, or all token creatures they control to their hands. It's another semi-modal Wrath. Like, if we have a bunch of Fractals and everybody else just has a bunch of normal creatures, we just bounce all non-tokens and then get in. It's pretty good. Replication Technique is not draw. Return of the Wild Speaker is definitely draw. Yeah, no, Perplexing Test is very strong just because it is situational and you can choose. So, yeah, it's very good. I think it's very good. I don't think obviously it's not Cyclonic Rift, but it can be a more fair feeling Cyclonic Rift, if that makes sense. Choose one. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. That could be pretty huge. Non-human creatures. Most of our stuff isn't human, so that's fine. The non-human creatures you control get +3/+3 until end of turn. I'm going to be honest. I don't think I've ever seen anybody in Commander cast Return of the Wild Speaker for the +3/+3. It's always the draw, which is absolutely fine. Like, we're going to be having some big powered creatures on this deck. This is definitely staying in. Shamanic Revelation, draw a card for each creature you control. Great. And then it just gets better. You gain 4 life for each creature you control if we control big stuff. Absolutely. That's great. Spitting Image, Azuri's Predation. Azuri's Predation is easily another crazy Wrath in this deck. Yeah. It's... For each creature your opponents control, create a 4/4 green beast creature token. Each of those beasts fights a different one of those creatures. So, yeah, this is either immediately catch up to the board and wipe a bunch of it, or just a straight up board wipe, or with Esix, it can just become some huge overwhelming thing if we have some big creature out, because the 4/4s by themselves are great, but if we're making a whole bunch of, 8/8 octopuses or something, do they still fight if they don't enter as beasts? I believe so. Each of those beasts... That's interesting. Do each of those beasts... I want to say that the fight still happens no matter what those tokens enter as. However, even if they end up not and we're getting something way better than those beasts... I think that's still fine as a card, because it automatically catches us up to whatever's happening on the board. Yeah, like if I'm making a bunch of 6/6s, yeah, I'm in the same boat as you, Codename JD. As somebody who writes a bunch about the rules of Magic, I'm the one who writes and makes all of those what the keyword videos that we put out, like what is cumulative upkeep is one that just came out. What is flanking? The rules are always very weird and strange and almost intuitive, but never quite fully intuitive. So I'm probably going to look this up before I actually play the game, but Azuri's Predation's definitely staying in the deck. So as far as that goes, what do we have for creature draw? I wish Concordant Crossroads was cheaper. Boy, howdy, don't most people who play green. What else do we have as far as draw? Codename JD, yes I can. Do you really want me to? I made that video. Banding actually isn't as bad as you think it is. Do you want me to explain banding real quick? Because I totally will. This is going to become my play Freebird. What do we got? Champion of Wits. It's not bad. As far as draw, the discard 2, I'm not always the biggest fan of, but it's not the worst, and I get the whole point of playing it with Esix because you make the token later. Yeah, good job, Jordan. That was pretty fast as far as the reaction goes for that. What else do we got? Champion of Wits as far as creature draw is fine. Like, we're gonna have cards that we can filter away. So I'm okay with it. What do you all think of Champion of Wits? I'm kind of borderline on it. Like, I think it's fine in the list as it is, but it's one of those cards I could pretty easily cut for something else and not miss at all. Fair enough, Card Kingdom. Yeah, people always think that those old rules are terribly difficult. Flanking and banding aren't that bad. It's just that they were worded so convolutedly. You can break it down real easy to what it actually does. It's like Animate Dead. If you ever look at the Oracle text for Animate Dead, in fact, here. Card, Animate Dead. Look at that. That is a block of text that almost doesn't fit on a Magic card. They have to make the font so small to fit that on a Magic card. Here's how you explain what Animate Dead does. Take a creature out of your graveyard, put Animate Dead on it. It's the same creature, except it gets -1/-0. If Animate Dead goes away, so does the creature. The end. That's what Animate Dead does. It's not that hard, but because of the way Magic rules work, you have to have that huge block of text there. That huge block of text there. I think a Queen Slomp of Champ for Tireless would be good. You know what? I agree. That is a good call. I'm kind of curious to see how Champion goes. I'd like to see us make as many tokens and copies of the Embalmed Champion. That's interesting. That's not a May, though, right? The draw? You may draw cards. It is a May. Okay. Because I was about to say, it is not unfeasible in this deck that we end up doing what you're saying, making a ton of copies of the Embalmed Champion, and then that is enough tokens and creatures that we end up having to deck ourselves if we actually had to draw, but since it's a May, that's a lot better. I still like Robotson's idea of swapping it out for Tireless Tracker, but we'll see if there's something else better to swap it out for Tireless Tracker later. But it's on the fence. We're still technically on card draw and removal. What else functions as that in here? I don't think a lot of these technically are card draw. Oh, this kind of does, yeah. Curiosity Crafter is one of the new cards. It's pretty good. Flying, you have no maximum hand size. Excellent. Whenever a creature token you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Yeah, it's good. We're going to be having enough tokens, whether they are big or small, that we can probably get in for combat. Also, the fact that we have no maximum hand size, that's always a fun effect to throw on things. Like, this obviously is a bit of a target once it comes down, but I'm fine with that. It's based by itself. It's good. Like, this is one of those cards for Commander that seems purpose-built for this deck. Obviously it was, but just, like, there's a lot of use in it without completely breaking the game. This is a good style of Commander design, I think. Master Biomancer is not the draw one right now. That's just the things get bigger. Oh, hey. I forgot about this one for our ramp. This is also ramp. This to me is one of the least interesting one of these cards that they made in Strixhaven, but it's fine. It ramps you a little bit. Yeah, like, it's just kind of a boring 3/4 for 4 that ramps you on. It's fine. Thopter Spy Network. Remind me what Thopter Spy Network does. I don't want Thopter Pie Network. How dare you? Oh, whatever. I'll look it up in a second. The Cultivator is really sweet. Quandrix Cultivator. It's fine. It seems a little boring to me, but it's not bad. If we end up with, like, bounce effects there, it's really good. Thopter's Smile Network is good, but another one like the Eldrazi enchantments that doesn't let us control when we make tokens. Okay. Rashi's not draw. Dika isn't draw. So we have a decent amount of draw, but it seems to be a lot more on the higher end of the mana curve. I'm definitely liking Tireless Tracker as both a draw engine and then as a very silly token engine for us later. Is there anything else I would rather cut than the Champion of Wits for that? I think I like it better than Champion of Wits. I can see Champion of Wits being real good, especially if we can copy it a bunch, but it's essentially a one-shot for making the tokens, whereas Tireless Tracker makes a bunch more tokens. Hornet Queen plus Finn. Wow. Wow, you're playing gloves off, aren't you? Over there, Card Kingdom. Ugh. That's just mean. I want you to know that that is mean. I'm not the one piloting it. I'm not the one piloting that mess either. Look, someday I will build a poison deck for Commander Kingdom. Not yet. Seems weak even then. Is Biomathematician new? It probably is. When Biomathematician enters the battlefield, create a 0/0 green and blue fractal token. Put a +1/+1 counter on it for each fractal you control. Yeah, it's... That is one I might cut. Is that even one of the commander ones, or is that just a straight-up Strixhaven card? Because Strixhaven cards I'm fine cutting. It's the Commander 2021 cards I really want to keep in if I can. For now, where are you? Champion of Wits. You become a Tireless Tracker. So yeah, Biomathematician we can certainly cut. But that kind of falls into a different category of cards, so we'll get there. Real quick, I just want to see what EDA Trek has to say about things. They don't really break it up into a way where it's card draw or whatnot, but I'm going to call the basics for card draw and removal that we've done good. And we're going to move on to building the themes. This is kind of whatever we want it to be. This is where we're figuring out tokens and things, so let's start figuring out things. You know what? We'll. Odds are Champion of Wits probably comes back in. But first, what I'm going to do is I am going to cut Biomathematician for Avenger of Zendikar, because let's be real, that's what everybody wants to see. Biomathematician, I am sorry, buddy, but you got avenged. There's Avenger of Zendikar in there. Save that. Let's do a quick update of some things here. Update you. Where are we at? We're at 150, so we're still definitely good on the money. This, we might end up being able to throw in some little pricier, better lands. We'll see. Meanwhile, what else do we want to bring in? I'm going to kind of figure out what I want to bring in from these cards first. Master of Wave's pretty good. Mere Propagator gives you a way to get tokens, only one though. We'll go through the EDA Trek stuff, figure out what we want to bring in, and then we'll figure out what we're cutting. We'll kind of do it the opposite of what I've been doing. Deep Forest Hermit actually doesn't seem awful. It's not already in there, is it? I don't think so. No. So we put in Avenger of Zendikar. Hornet Queen's already in the deck. Hornet Queen's definitely staying in the deck. Rite of Replication, so here's the thing. Where's Second Harvest? For each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. That I am considering the same realm as something like Parallel Lives, where it's a token doubler, because that is exactly what it is. So unfortunately, while Second Harvest is explosive and fantastic for this kind of deck, it does violate one of our building rules, which is no token doublers outside of what starts in the deck. Where are we at? What do you all think of Rite of Replication? Like, Rite of Replication obviously can do good things. But it's kind of like Esix is already filling that role, right? And we have to spend 9 mana to do the big version of it. And it's one of those things that always gets countered, or they kill the creature or something in response. So I'm almost thinking Rite of Replication can come out of the deck, because it's in there to start. What do you all think? I love Rite, it's more fair. Yeah, it is certainly fair. I just want to make room for things like Master of Waves, because I definitely like Master of Waves. We're going to add that to our clipboard of cards to add. Scoot Swarm could be funny. If we had Precursor Golem, oh god. Scoot Swarm does give us that landfall theme stuff. Scoot Swarm could be pretty silly. I'll throw it in for now. I don't know whether it ends up making the cut. What else do we got? Replication Technique I haven't talked about yet. I love all of the Technique cards with Demonstrate. Demonstrate is one of my favorite Commander mechanics in a long while. Bio Visionary. So here's the deal. Bio Visionary is very silly and very good. However, this is kind of getting a little, not exactly inside baseball, but just, I'm hosting a stream when we play these things, like Commander Kingdom. So we have played 2 games. Like last time we did play 2 games because the first game ended kind of quick, and that ended up being really fun. One of the things we try to tell people when we invite them onto that show is please try to not end the game immediately. Like, let people play a little bit with the way you build your deck. Please don't infinite combo people out by turn 4. If I throw in Biovisionary, am I breaking that rule myself? Is Biovisionary fun, or is it just silly? I feel like Biovisionary is fun the first time. So I'm borderline. I'll throw it into our list, our maybe pile, essentially, for now. But I am not 1,000,000% sure. You're going to veto that one? Okay. Card Kingdom has vetoed Biovisionary for me. So Biovisionary comes off the list. Meanwhile, our top cards. Half of these are already in the deck. Because E6 is brand new EDH Rec, like, a lot of people are just modifying the deck list like I'm doing. So, yeah. So a lot of these are already going to be in here. What do we got? Eternal Witness seems fun and good. I'm not sure it's terribly themey, though. Like, it's just buying stuff back from our graveyard, which is fine. But it's kind of boring as far as the theme goes. Oh, Idle Oblivion is a draw card, isn't it? Draw a card, activate this only if we created a token this turn, and sacrifice Idle Oblivion, create a 10/10 colorless Eldrazi creature token. That seems fine. What else do we got? Crows and Grip's already in the deck. I don't mind Crows and Grip. Does Mystic Reflection count as being a token doubler? I'd say no, right? It absolutely does not. We can throw Mystic Reflection in the deck. Yeah. Right? Next time one or more creatures planeswalks into the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies. No, yeah, that's just the E6 effect. Risen Reef. Was Risen Reef even here? Oh, Risen Reef. Other elemental enters battlefield under control. E6. These are elementals, right? Like, the fractals are just fractals. Oh no, it is just a fractal. Sad. But yeah, I'm certainly down for Mystic Reflection being in the deck. That's absolutely fine. Muldrifter seems funny if I can copy it. Muldrifter seems real good if I can copy it. I'm fine with Muldrifter being in this deck. What else do we got? Rampaging Baloths seems silly. If you turn many tokens into copies of Risen Reef, so much value. If I turn that many... if you don't put the card onto the battlefield, put it into your hand... If I make that many copies of Risen Reef, since they all see each other entering and everybody gets triggers, That is a potential one where I draw half my deck and then have to discard half my deck and then deck myself. Because, yeah, if I make 3 Risen Reefs that all enter at the same time, just as a random number to throw out there, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 triggers, right? Because each of them see 3 instances of Risen Reef. Like, man, that seems good and dumb. Sure, you know what? Let's be good and dumb. Risen Reef goes in the pile. Stuff like Wood Elves seems fun. 12, they trigger the original 2. Oh, that's right, because there'd already have to be one on the field for that to happen. That's silly. So stuff like Wood Elves seems fun. I think we have enough effects with things like Risen Reef and whatnot that we're going to be hitting our land drops. I'm not worried about things like Wood Elves. Rex Sage is probably good. Like, having an effect like that is good. Do I have anything else like that? It's already in the list. I don't know the list well enough off the top of my head to, like, know all of the stuff in there. I don't think I have... Oh, Trigon Predator. You know what? We can swap... Like, Trigon Predator is good, but I think I would rather have something like Rex Sage in the Trigon Predator slot. So for now, Rex Sage is going to go onto the maybe pile. Mere Battlesphere is funny, isn't it? The only thing about it is, like, the untapped Mirror isn't great, since we're probably wanting to turn those tokens into something else. Whew, excuse me. Michaeloth, like, all of these effects that create tokens automatically are great, except for the whole thing where we cannot control the timing of it. Yeah, like, Trigon Predator is good as a threat that lives there. Copying itself, the Battlesphere is good. Yeah, that's true, the Battlesphere is... It's another Avenger of Zendikar style effect, so we'll throw it in for now. Because what's the point of this if we aren't going for those big splashy effects? Acidic Slime just seems mean, doesn't it? Hoo boy. Agent of Treachery also seems real mean. Agent of Treachery I'm less sold on, though. Like, Agent of Treachery is obviously awesome, but I don't know how fun it is, and while I do want to build a powerful deck, I am still trying to build something that's fun to both watch and play against. I think I talked about this last time, but if you weren't here last time, my natural inclination as a player is to just build, like, Hannah prison decks that nobody can hit me with. Hello, memes. There's 2 E's, so I think the second one has to be memes, right? It's not just memes. Pain Bacon? What is Pain Bacon? I am so confused. Robotson, I demand an explanation of Pain Bacon. End raise. Oh, yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it? Throwing Acidic Slime into the maybe pile. No, it's memes, but it's a meme on memes. It's a weird inception. Fair. Terastodon seems good. It doesn't seem... It's another version of something like Agent of Treachery. How fun is it actually once I'm doing it? Farhaven Elves is the same thing as Wood Elves. Like, I think we're good on being able to find lands and mana and whatnot. Yeah, I'm not sold on Agent of Treachery just from a pure, is this actually a good experience deck? Agent doesn't play well on webcam. Amphimuteneer doesn't work too well, only good on removal. Yeah. Exile up to 1. Like, if I'm exiling my own stuff to upgrade it, that's, like... Yeah, even then, that doesn't seem great for Amphimuteneer. There's stuff like Craterhoof, obviously. There's stuff like Endrays. We already did Tireless Tracker. Chasm Skulker seems funny. Deck does need win cons, that's true. You could use it on your own things to get more tokens and only remove the major problems. Yeah. Chasm Skulker does seem funny, doesn't it? Emrakul's Evangel? What do you do? A lot of these cards are already in the deck. Hey, there's that Progenitor Mimic. Alright. Codename JD, was it you who was arguing for Progenitor Mimic earlier? At the beginning of your upkeep, if this creature isn't a token, create a token that's a copy creature. It's good because it's a good token targeter. Interesting. Alright. Enough people are arguing for Terastodon, it will at least go in the maybe pile. I'm still thinking about Chasm Skulker. Maybe if we're doing like Whelming Wave and things, it's good. It's good with that one other card in the deck already that I can't remember the name of. What is it? The Spawning Kraken? I think I like Chasm Skulker. I think that one's going to end up going in, or at least going into the maybe bit. Alright, what else do we got? Trigon Predator, no. Llanowar Elves. How, like... Llanowar Elves is a very good card. It is ramp, it is a creature, it does a lot of things. Why are you throwing Llanowar Elves into a deck like this? There's so many more fun things you can do. You could target it and create lots of copies, but you expect removal a ton and it seems too slow. Yeah, I'm not oversold on Progenitor Mimic right now. Zimone I like. Zimone's going to stay in. She is one of the new creatures, legendaries from this set in the deck. I think she's actually just straight from, whatchamacallit, Strixhaven. But I'm fine having a couple of cards that aren't super on theme that still do it. What else do we got? What else do we want? Nakatl Warpride. Nakatl Warpride's real funny, isn't it? Yeah, Nakatl Warpride can be real silly. That one can go in. It's spendy though, isn't it? It's 6 mana. We'll figure out the mana curve and stuff later. Dika and Crafty Cutpurse are already in there. Hydra Broodmaster's already in there. A lot of these are already in here. Timestream Navigator. No. Why? Why is that in this deck other than just being annoying? Kazandu Tuskcaller's already in there. I like that one a lot. Just on demand, spit out tokens. That seems real good. Reform is in there. Reform also seems real good. Esix isn't a May, right? Esix we have to do. Oh no, it's May. Okay, it is May. Reform does seem too slow. Reform seems slow, it seems conditional. Reform's probably one we can cut. It's already in the deck, so, like, that's going to be one of the spots we end up putting one of these other things into. But yeah, I'm kind of on that. Like, Reform gets big, and it works well with the Spawning Kraken, but it takes a lot of time to get to the point where it works with Spawning Kraken, and... like, if we were playing a Sacrifice Outlet, or a couple of Sacrifice Outlets that we could consistently get, but yeah, it doesn't seem great. So Reform's probably getting cut. Archaeomancer I can see the value of, but not by itself. We need more. Thassa. Then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So that just lets us abuse enter the battlefield stuff, which isn't bad. Maybe for 20 bucks of our budget, though, I don't know. Springbloom Druid, I can see why people would throw it in, but again, unless we're playing Ramanop Excavator or something, I'm not doing that. So stuff like the Ancient is good, but it's not really fitting into the theme of the deck. Springbloom for more ramp is fine. I like Harrow on a stick too. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Coma seems good. Coma is, like, on the verge of one of those cards that seems like it's too good. like, that, I don't know if y'all watch Game Nights. If you don't, you should. Command Zone is one of our affiliates, and they're great people. Go watch them. They're currently running a charity with us. If you order stuff using Command Zone's affiliate link, Magic Kids gets some money from it. So, hey, do that. It's good for a good cause. But anyway, they had an episode not too long ago where somebody played a Coma deck, and the moment Coma came down and was able to make, like, one token, it's just, it takes over the game so much. Coma's real good. Is it fun? I don't know. Stuff like Gilded Goose I'm actually tempted to throw in because it does do ramp and it also creates tokens on demand. Which seems good because we like creating tokens on demand with Esix. Yeah, that is a good word for it, codename JD, oppressive. Coma is more fair when they are not serpent tokens. That's true, but I get to choose, and like, even though I'm building these decks for fun, I still like playing optimally when I can on Commander Kingdom. Most of the time it's just going to be correct to make serpent tokens. I'm actually tempted to throw Gilded Goose in there just because of the thing. Coma also means we aren't choosing, yeah, so Gilded Goose. Everybody, we're choosing Gilded Goose over Coma in this. This is the kind of deck we're building. Giant Ataphage seems real silly. Sure, that's a good win con. See, that to me is a sillier, fun win con than something like Coma. It's a little more, like, they have more of a shot to do something to it, but also it can just run over the game real fast, especially if we're making multiple giant Ataphages. Ataphagi? Ataphages. Whenever Kessid Cagebreaker attacks, put a 2/2 green wolf creature token on the battlefield, tapped and attack for each creature card in your graveyard. That's fun. What do we got? Thopter Assembly. That's fine. It's another one of those where we have to do it on our upkeep. I do like the fact we return it to hand. Ataphodes. I like Ataphodes, but you do get 5. Yeah, Thopter Assembly is a good card for sure. Yeah, we can do that. Like, that is a big enough effect, more so than something like Awakening Zone where we're just making the 1 token. We can also semi-control when we're doing it because it isn't every upkeep we have to, like, choose to do the Thopter Assembly thing. Like, cast it, I mean, essentially, not just choosing. Yeah, I think y'all know what I mean. Mana Gorger Hydra is already in the deck. That might actually be a cut. Mana Gorger Hydra is, yeah, like, codename JD, I'm with you. Like, it's good. There is a +1/+1 counter sub-theme, but that's all it is. Like, it's just a big creature with trample that's going to get removed pretty fast. So I'm fine that being one of the cuts. Crashing Drawbridge, I see the reason for it in the deck and giving big things haste, but I also don't care. So, like, we have 14 cards to add so far, so it's not doing awful. Instance, I'm a fan of throwing Heroic Intervention into every deck I can, so that's probably going in there. Stuff like Reality Shift, meh. Arcane Denial, like, there's Double Major. Is Double Major Strixhaven, or is that already in this deck? Wow, that's not in this deck. That's just a Strixhaven card. It is instant speed copy. What else do we have for instant speed copy right now? Or just make a token. Curse of the Swine's a silly one. That's not for us, though. Beast Within makes tokens. I guess we don't have a lot of just, like, make a token at instant speed, do we? Yeah, I can see Double Major going in there. Alright. Make a token of something. Stuff like Growth Spiral is good, but we already have enough effects that do draw cards, put lands onto play. Like, counter spells, we'll see. We're going to throw in the, what's that spell? The Decisive Denial? Something? I like it to copy. It does only copy a creature spell on the stack, though. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is a little more situational. Like, it's in the maybe pile. I'm not sure it's going into the deck yet. What I'm probably going to do is everything that's in the maybe pile right now, which is 16 cards, I'm going to just add to the deck, and then we'll whittle it down from there. Decisive Denial is the counters. Well, okay, thank you. So, we have cards like Fierce Guardianship here. Curious Herd seems really silly. I don't know if I'm going to end up playing against a deck that really cares about artifacts, but if I do, it's instant speed, make a bunch of something. Swan Song, the other person gets the token. If we got a token for countering something, that would absolutely be in. Curious Herd we can put in, like... We have to keep in mind that whenever we're making tokens, there's a good chance we aren't making what it tells us to make. We're making something way better. So anything at instant speed that can make any number of tokens goes way up. Fierce Guardianship. So that's a lot of our mana, or that's a lot of our money budget. That's like 1/10 of our budget by itself. But it's real good. I almost want to put it in there. Hey, there's Decisive Denial. We'll just throw that in while I'm thinking about it. I do want some amount of counter spells. I don't want a ton, because unless you have talked about that beforehand with your play group, having just a load of counter spells in your deck is very unfun, but I'm thinking about it. I'm not going to put it in yet, but I'm thinking about it. Ooh, no, hold on. Here we go. Right? Yeah, this is what we want. We want this kind of counterspell. Spell Swindle. Perfect. Yes. Good job. We did it. Scatter the Seeds is an instant with Convoke? That ain't bad. Maybe. Sprout Swarm, or Spore Swarm. It's another instant. Like, if it's one or the other. We aren't putting both of those in there. I think we're kind of at a decent spot here. Do we want Quandrix Command? I don't really care about Quandrix Command, I think. Sublime Epiphany is always a good card, but it's not really themey for this. I mean, there's always Cackling Counterpart, but that just seems... we're already doing a ton of that effect anyway. Plasm Capture is another one we could do. Oh, but that's just mana drain. Rampage of the Clans? Where are you? Destroy all artifacts and enchantments for each permanent destroyed this way. Its controller creates 3/3 green centaur token. Oh yeah, that can go in there. That's definitely good. Thank you for pointing that one out. I scrolled right past it, and that was bad on me. Biomass Mutation is already in the deck. I'm actually not sure how much I like it. Like, it doesn't give my creatures trample or anything. It just makes them all hopefully big, but you have to spend all your mana to do it in a way, or, you know, a large part of your mana to do it. So Biomass Mutation is probably actually a cut for me. Anything else we really want out of all of this stuff? I think we're in a pretty good spot. We're at 21 cards to figure out how to whittle. Hull Breacher. Well, here's the thing. Do we want to be that mean? Aether Mutation, where are you? What does Aether Mutation do? Turn target creatures on our hands, create X. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? Sure. You are sorcery, which isn't great, but you can go into at least the maybe pile. Yeah, the old border threw me off on that one for some reason. I just didn't read that as Aether mutation. So yeah, we're just kind of getting into... Curse of the Swine is in the deck already. I don't know how I feel about Curse of the Swine. Like, this is a deck that can make a ton of mana, but the point of it isn't to make... Like, the way it is built right now, it's not made to be, like, make 40 mana style of a deck. It's just, I can use a lot of mana each turn sort of deck. So I don't know how I feel about Curse of the Swine. We already have a couple of board wipey sort of things and bounce and stuff. So Curse of the Swine might be a cut too, because it starts out in the deck list. Beacon of Creation. Yeah, I know, like, that is definitely the argument for it. It's removal and upgrade. It's just expensive at sorcery speed. That is literally my only problem with it. Is if everybody has 2 creatures and we want to get rid of everything, that's 10 mana to do it. Including if we're getting rid of 2 of my creatures to make them into something better. Like, I'm not convinced I'm taking it out, but just, that's where my brain is at on that card. You know what, like, I usually throw in some amount of MDFCs of the, like, the Battle for Zendikar ones. I don't know that I care in this deck. Yes, we did talk about Avenger of Zendikar already. It's currently in the deck, or at least it's, like, on the way to being in the deck. We are totally avenging Zendikar. Beacon of Creation does seem funny. Ooh, maybe. I don't know about Beacon of Creation. It's obviously good. How many forests do we have? Like, we have 10 plus... I actually don't think any of our non-basics are forests. It can go in the maybe pile. Alrund's Epiphany is the extra turn, make a couple of tokens one. Like, that's not bad, it's just an end. 1 dozen eyes. I figured out a way to Doomsday in green. I mean, you can throw it out there. Whether or not I put it in the deck's going to be a different thing. Gingerbread Cabin and Breeding Pool might be the only non-basic forest we'd have. Yeah, we don't even have Breeding Pool in at the moment, and I don't think I threw in Gingerbread Cabin yet. So yeah, like, Beacon of Creation is very maybe. I'm kind of liking where we're at. Like, I'm just kind of scrolling through right now to see. There's a bunch of X-Spell make token things, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm shying away from those ones. Raven forms, fine. Got a bunch of token doubling thingies. Populate X times. Oh, good lord. Pest, Migration Path we already got. Good call on that. And then we're back to, like, utility artifacts and things like that. Anything we want to throw in from here? Let's see. Fractal Harness. Helm of the Host is another one of those where we cannot control when it happens. Bow of Nylea with Hermit Druid. Makes a weird makeshift Doomsday type thing, yeah. Not sure if you could enable a game-winning combo with it here, though. We aren't exactly looking to be a full-on combo deck. I like where your head's at because that's silly. I don't know we're going to use it right now. Skull Clamp actually doesn't seem great in this deck because we're going to have ways to make a bunch of 1/1s and small tokens, but the point is that hopefully the tokens we're making are way bigger than X1s. See, I don't know about that one. Snake Basket's a sacrifice effect, not a huge fan of that. Mimic Vat. Mimic Fad is make tokens at instant speed in a way, or is it? It's gains, yeah. But we have to exile the tokens. Enchantments. I mean, there's heuristic studies. Exile at end step, though, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Awakening Zone, Growing Rights of Itlamok, sort of thing, but it's $32, which is a lot. Garrick's Uprising, no. Primal Empathy. Is Primal Empathy already in? No, there's not that many. Oh no, Primal Empathy isn't there. Okay. Primal Empathy is one I like. It's just good incremental do stuff. We already threw Encrypt Lithite. Don't want asceticism. There's stuff like Elemental Bond we can do. Mystic Remor is good fun. Garrick's Uprising. Where are you at? When Garrick's Uprising enters the battlefield, if you contribute they have Trample. That's not bad. Yeah. Throw it in there. Games do need to end. Cards that end the game are not inherently bad. As far as Planeswalkers, Garrick Primal Hunter is the only one that starts out in the deck. I am not Okoing. Just going to say that right now. Things that make tokens are good. Kind of like Nissa. Nissa seems pretty funny. I mean, all of these are obviously going to be the ones that make some kind of token, right? So we have Garrick in there already, which is certainly probably the best option here. Nissa's a classic. She works on all angles for this deck. Yeah, I'll throw in Nissa. Freyalise. Freyalise ain't bad. Sure. So those are the ones we're going to work with. Alright, so now, been through pretty much all of the options, or all of the categories. So now we do the fun bit where we are going to throw everything into the deck list, and then we're going to have to whittle things down. Alright, so give me a second to just update everything here, because we are way over the limit right now. But we're getting near to the end, because right now, what are we at? We're at like 100 and what cards? We're at 126 cards. Alright, so time to make some cuts. Let's go over to the visual view here so you can kind of see what we're working with. Things are now too big to fit fully on the screen, but I'll adjust as needed. So, creatures. Let's just go down the list and figure out what can come out. Gilded Goose I like. Coiling Oracle is good. So we have Coiling Oracle. We also already have Risen Reef. I think Risen Reef is better in this instance. Just because if we're making more tokens of it, each Risen Reef triggers more off of all the other tokens of Risen Reef that are already in the deck. So while Coiling Oracle is one of my favorite, Stubborn Denial, do I want more counter magic? Risen Reef is much better when we can clone it, why not both? We might end up with both. I'm just trying to figure out what could be cut right now. Stubborn Denial could be good. We'll see, though. Like, we already have plenty of options as far as stuff to cut here. Yeah, all Stubborn Denial is it's 4 spike, so 1 mana, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. If you control a creature with power 4 or greater, counter that spell instead. So Stubborn Denial could be good, but we're just figuring out. Let's figure out this part first, and then we'll get there. Stuff that we figured out could absolutely come out. Let's see. I don't know how I feel about Hornet Nest. What do you like? Hornet Nest obviously does stuff in this deck, but it's just such a nothing card if they're flying, or yeah, there's just a lot of instances where it's dead. I do not know how I feel about Hornet Nest in this deck. What else do we got? Mana Gorger Hydra was definitely one we could cut. It's a good card, it's just not for this deck. It doesn't do quite what we want it to do. Plaxcaster Frogling is Graft. Target creature with +1/+1 counter on it. Gain Shroud until end of turn. That could actually be pretty good. Scoot Swarm's fine. Trigon Predator was one of the other ones we could cut, especially since, as you can see, we put Reclamation Sage in right above it. Where are you at, Trigon? There you are. So there goes Trigon. Adrix and Nev are good. They're the normal commander for this deck, but I think we're done. I feel like I usually cut Hornet's Nest and Reform when I have them. Yeah, so Hornet Nest and Reform was the other one I was trying to remember that we said we could cut. Reform goes out. Hornet Nest, I am fine with going out. Hornet Queen is way better. Hornet Nest is too reliant on our opponents making bad decisions. You can always give them the option to make bad decisions, but I wouldn't count on it. What else do we got? Six Slime. Arashi the Sky Asunder. Deals X damage to target creature with flying. Or we can discard it, do X damage to each creature with flying. Like, this does not really seem like it fits terribly well in this deck. And I just kind of don't care. So yeah, Arashi, I don't think goes in here. I feel fine cutting Arashi. We got definite amounts of removal in here that I don't feel like we need that in there. Dika is fantastic. Dika is the one that is Shark Typhoon on a stick. I like having Dika. Broodmaster is the one whenever it becomes monstrous, create a bunch of Hydra tokens and it has Monstrosity X. Obviously that does something, but how good is that? So it's 6 mana to come down as the 7/7 without trample. And then it's at least 3 mana to make 1 token, 5 mana, 7 mana. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're doing sillier things than Hydra Broodmaster. I'd be fine cutting Hydra Broodmaster. Yeah, I think I can cut Hydra Broodmaster. Where is the H? There it is. Okay, Hydra Broodmaster's getting cut. Going to save and refresh as I go just to try and make this a little more readable on the screen. As we cut cards, these things should start fitting slightly better. A little bit. Where are we at? We are now at 120 cards? Okay. A few more to go. This is all our high-end stuff that we threw in there. Oh, Terastodon. Terastodon was already in the deck. I don't need 2 of them. That's for certain. So, we're down at 119 cards. His pet card of mine, first game ever, my opponent made 20/20/20s, but here it's a bit expensive. 20/20/20s is pretty good, though. How do y'all feel about Desolation Twin? Like, it's 10 mana for obviously a big old beater that makes a copy of itself. Yeah, like, it is an impressive looking card, but we can already make a bunch of huge stuff that can get arbitrarily big with all the +1/+1 counters we're throwing around, so I don't know that Desolation Twin really matters. It's good when you copy it again and again. You're just getting a bunch of big 10/10s that don't have trample, though. We can already make semi-arbitrarily large creatures that don't have trample. Alright, so there's Desolation Twin. Yeah, the mana curve is also a bit of a concern at some point. We have our 3 Planeswalkers. I might cut one of them. Probably Fraley's, honestly. Because I'd rather have, like, for the 5-mana Planeswalker, I like the inherently bigger tokens, and I like the card draw being not the ultimate. We have plenty of ways of blowing up artifacts and enchantments already. Nissa makes our whole army bigger slowly over time, and is also pumping out things. So yeah, Fraley's, I think, is the cut from these 3. And I think I'm fine going down. As far as just like 2 Planeswalkers seems like plenty for now. Okay, as far as these go, Biomass Mutation, I do not care about at all. Curse the Swine, I think, well, that was a maybe. I'm not going to cut it yet, but it's a maybe. Double Major is also a maybe, like, it's good for... It's a little expensive because you have to cast the creature first and then copy it, so when we're getting into our high-end stuff, it's harder. Certainly isn't bad by itself, though, and we have a lot of silly effects to do with it, so for now, Double Major's going to stay in. Rampant Growth I'm kind of fine cutting. We have a lot of ways, as it turns out, to get extra lands onto the field. And I would rather keep things like Dama's Reach and Migration Path than just Rampant Growth. If it was any creature spell, it'd be good. Yeah, fair. Alright, fine. We'll be, I suppose, better about things. Where were the things I was talking about? There was Double Major, and there was Rampant Growth was the other one. Where are we at now? Where does that put us? We are at 114 cards. We're getting there. Oh, I suppose we're kind of past this part because now we are getting down to the final 100. So we kind of mixed theme and utility in together. And now we are just whittling things down. Refresh that bit. Did I actually refresh? 220? Is that where we're at right now? 220? No, I didn't actually refresh the right way. Huh, the visual view, for some reason, is not keeping up with the normal view. That's weird. Come on. Refresh to the right amount. Weird. Alright, for some reason the visual view, like I said, is not refreshing to the newest version of the deck. But I will fix that in a second. For now, let's keep cutting. Okay, where are we at? Beast Within's good and fine. Like, we can use that on our own stuff if we really need to. Golden Ratio Command. It's Crows and Grip. How do we feel about Crows and Grip? We have other ways at this point of getting rid of a bunch of artifacts and enchantments, and Crows and Grip feels kind of boring. So yeah, you know what? I get Crows and Grip is inherently a good card for what it does, but we have more interesting things to be doing. 113 now. Theoretical Duplication, definitely want to keep in. It's one of the new cards and it looks silly. Beacon of Creation, I think I'm cutting. Well, like, it's obviously very good. I don't know how many forests we're actually going to have out at any one time until we get super late game. So Beacon of Creation, I think, can go away. Curious Herd. I mean, if I'm getting rid of Beacon of Creation, it feels like I should get rid of Curious Herd, except Curious Herd is inherently bigger token, so even if we aren't E6ing, it's just a little more threatening. Eureka Moment, I think, yeah, that stays in. Migration Path, Rampage of the Clans definitely stays in. I'm still not overly sold on Rite of Replication, but we'll see what else we get rid of first. Incubation Incongruity is exile a creature, and then whatever gets exiled becomes 3/3. Or look at the top 5 cards of your library, find a creature land sort of thing. This is Expedition, was the Convoke, go search up stuff, so that's good. Yeah. Incubation Incongruity, yeah, that's what I was saying, it probably does go. Alright, where does that put us? That puts us somewhere. 111 cards. So we still have to cut 11 cards out of this mess. Oh, good lord. Are you going to upgrade to the right thing yet? Nope. Token effort, still not upgrading to the right thing. Alright, 1 second. I'm going to mess with this view, so hopefully it goes to the right visual bit. It's still going to the 220. That's bizarre. I don't know why the visual view on this will not, because like you can see here, it says 191 with this version, and then I hit visual view, and it goes back a few versions to the 220 version, so no clue what's going on with the visual view there. Anywho. Alright, now comes the hard part, because we are officially in the spot where... Yeah, Nakata War Pride is a pet card that I like, but it's probably not great here. I mean, I think it's great. I think our other things are better and more useful over the long term. Let's put it like that. Primal Empathy we liked, right? Primal Empathy, how do we feel about Primal Empathy? It's incremental card draw and +1/+1 stuff over time. Master Biomancer? That was the stuff comes in with extra +1/+1 counters, right? Each other creature you control enters battlefield with this mutant. Oh yeah, that's. We like the +1/+1 counters, but that's a little too myopic about it. That's all it is. Primal Empathy seems weak and slow. Sure, that can go then. Did I already get rid of it? Oh no, there it is. I do have to start paying attention to another thing, which is that first rule where we're trying to keep as many cards from the original deck in as we can. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 1, 2, 3, 42. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8. Alright, so we're still fine as far as cards that started out originally in the deck, so yes, Curse of the Swine can get ditched. We are now down to 107 cards. We're getting there. Scoot, yeah, Scoot is silly. Scoot is not the best as for the exact reason you just pointed out, Codename JD. All of the tokens enter one at a time. Man, this is actually going to end up being fairly budgety, isn't it? Alright, what else do we got? Scatter the Seeds, Spell Swindle, I like. How do we feel about the Baloths? Like, that's the same thing as Scoot Swarm, it's just more expensive and it doesn't create copies of itself. So if we're getting rid of Scoot Swarm, we can probably get rid of Rampaging Baloths, right? Because it's just more expensive. Yeah, we're definitely going to upgrade some of the lands in a minute. Rampaging Baloths, I feel we can cut. Y'all can yell at me if I'm wrong about that. But if we're getting rid of Scoot Swarms, we're getting rid of Rampaging Baloths. And yeah, we still do have Adrix and Nev in the deck, but we don't have them in the deck in a way where they are guaranteed to be available at all times. Cassetto? So... do we? Where are you? Cassetto or Archmage? Target creature can't be blocked this turn. If it's a snake, it gets +2/+2. Yeah, like, we have Rogue Passage if we really want to make something unblockable, and Cassetto is just a way more fragile version of that, I guess. So, sure, Cassetto can go. Cassetto? Not sure. Alright, so cutting that would put us down to 104, I believe. Does it still say 105? Ooh, 105, fine. Oh, Cassetto's still in there. Hold on. Yeah, we're past the point of adding cards. Like, the show is technically only supposed to last 5 more minutes, and I'm not sure we're going to make it. Alright, so 104 once we get rid of Cassetto. Cassetto? Whatever. Alright, so 4 more cuts. What do we got? Paradox Zone we like. Just kind of looking over. I think it's time for Coiling Oracle to go. As much as I like Coiling Oracle, one of my favorite uncommons. I used to play Allurin in Legacy, and boy was Coiling Oracle real good there. So there's one. Skulker is fine. Skulker is a little situational since it has to die and there's no guarantee we can attack into it in a way where our opponents need to block it to die. So I like Chasm Skulker. It works well with the one creature, but that I don't think is enough to keep it in there. Chasm Skulker goes. 2 more cuts. We're at 102. We got a good mix of creatures. I probably want to cut some spells because I do want a good amount of creatures in the deck to be able to make the tokens from. Can we see the top of the list? What aren't you seeing? Oh, there we go. Sorry, we've cut enough now that things are... There we go. I think the only card you're missing up there is Rampage of the Clans, but that is all of it. Yeah, there we go. You can see the migration path at the bottom there. Cool. So Rampage of the Clans is up there. It's definitely staying in. It's real good. 2 more cuts. I think we want to keep 38 lands, so I don't want to cut another one of those. Yeah, Red Replication, probably. We're already making enough tokens. Rapid Hybridization, how do we feel? Destroy target creature, it can't be regenerated. Nissa's Expedition, convoke, search your library for up to 2 basics. I'm fine with that. Yeah, we have enough other rampant things, so Nissa's Expedition, right, or what does Scatter the Seeds do? Scatter the Seeds I like just because it is instant speed, make 3 of whatever thing. So I'd rather get rid of Nissa's Expedition, I think. So those will be our last 2 cuts. It's Nissa's Expedition and Rite of Replication. And we have a deck. There we go. Let's see if it will give me the correct visual view yet. Nope. Alright, 2 seconds while I figure this out. Make the visual view out of here. Okay. There we go. There we go. Nope, it's still giving me the $220 version, which this is definitely not. So, I don't know why the Goldfish visual view is just giving me the wrong thing all the time, but whatever. Here's the deck. We are officially at 171.94. So, the only thing I would change between now and Commander Kingdom is maybe a few of the lands might upgrade, but even then, like, it's a pretty good mix right now. I can't throw in Tropical Island because that blows our budget. Throwing in a Shockland might do a thing, but it's not like I'm running any fetches to go find it anyway. So honestly, I think this might do it. Like, no, I personally, me, Chris, am not spending that much money on a Concordant Crossroads. And while Card Kingdom will lend me cards to fill out these decks, like, if I really wanted to for a deck this price, I could just say, hey, Fulfillment, can I borrow these cards for a time? I don't think they're willing to lend me a card that's worth that much. How much does Concordant Crossroads cost right now? that's only $64. But no, the point of Crowdsource Commander, which is this show, is this is the deck I'm going to be playing. This is the deck I'm going to be playing on Commander Kingdom in 2 weeks. So yeah, Wednesday the 28th, 2 weeks from now, we are going to be playing a game with... Oh, good lord. I just completely blanked on who all is playing that one. So, who are our guests? Amy the Amazonian, I know for sure. Jumbo Commander. You see him a lot on the Command Zone and on his own channel. And then Benjamin Wheeler. Those are our 3 guests that I'm going to be playing Commander Kingdom with in 2 weeks. Did you not take I did take the graphic. The graphic is on another screen. I'm not going to switch to the graphic yet. We aren't in the outro. I'm still talking. But yes, we're going to switch to that graphic in a second. I was just seeing if I could do it while we're still looking at the list. But yeah, that's the list. Its official name that Card Kingdom, our moderator, sighs at me for is A Token Effort. Always got to name your decks puns. Remember that. All the puns you can do. Tune in a couple of weeks to see this deck in action. I have done very mediocre at our Commander Kingdom so far. I managed to win the 1 a few months ago with Pramicon. I won at 1 life. It was great. I'm going to see if I can maybe steamroll people with this deck. Even though it's budgety, I think there's a lot of powerful stuff that this deck can do. And yeah, this looks fun. So yeah, tune in a couple of weeks. Thanks for joining me for this upgrade. Turns out upgrading decks is a lot harder than building them from the ground up, in a way, just because you're already having to kind of fit things into a framework that's already there. But yeah, thank you for joining me. Tune in a couple of weeks for Commander Kingdom, and I will see you then.